crazy. Some of which we will be talking about this evening. We got some more footage. We got some great panelists. I've got a hammer. Hey! Sorry. If you do that 22 times, then you will catch it eventually. I haven't got the hammer because of the film. I just find that if you weigh 250 pounds and wander around Comic-Con with a hammer, people will get the fuck out of your way. Alright, without further ado, I would like to introduce this evening's panelists. Cast members Pon Clemente and Michael Imperioli, and writer Mark Protasevich. Security is remarkably lax up here. Sorry, that was Pon Clemente. I beg your pardon.
Pon Clemente.
I do apologize.
Russian.
I come from a country where Brown is considered a hard surname to say. Mark, maybe I could start with you. Could you, I mean, I haven't really said anything about what the movie is about, partly because I'm scared to. Maybe you could set up, you know, for many people unfamiliar with Oldboy, what they can look forward to.
Actually, I'd be curious as to how many people here are not familiar with the original. By applause. How many people are familiar with it? Well, for those of you who don't know too much about it, Oldboy is about a man in our version named Joe Doucette. I tried to find a name that sounded vaguely like police. Joe Doucette is an advertising executive who one night meets a woman and the next morning wakes up in what he thinks is a motel room, and it turns out to be a jail. And he has no idea why he's there or who put him there. And he spends the next 20 years of his life there. And then one day he's released and essentially posed the challenge to find out who is responsible, who is the person responsible for his imprisonment, and why, the reasons why for his imprisonment. Which, of course, for those of you who do know the original, these are all the same concepts of the original. I would say that we are, you know, we all came from a place of honor and respect to the original. I love the original, and I think it's one of the great movie-going experiences I ever had. And all of us involved were very much inclined to treat the material with as much honor and respect as we can. I know, I'll just say right out, I know that there are people out there who feel sort of this fundamental resistance to the idea of a remake. I would just advocate, give us a shot.
And Michael, could you talk about your character a little and how you got involved in the project?
I got involved, Spike called me. This is the 6th movie with Spike on. So kind of just, call came out of the blue. Actually, he assumed that I had already heard from my agent. He called and said, "I'm really excited, we're working together again." I said, "What?" He said, "Oldboy." I said, "Spike, I don't know what you're talking about." He's like, "You're playing Josh as your agent." I said, "No." He said, "Not yet. But I'm really happy anyway." So he just assumed that the deal was done when it wasn't. Of course it was going to get done because it's Spike. So I play Chucky, who's kind of a lifelong friend of Joe's. We went to school together, school chums, and remained friends. And when he resurfaces, when Joe resurfaces after all that time, he comes to me to give him shelter, basically, and help him put his life back together.
And Pom, KG even asking you to talk about your role, really, but is there anything you can say about it?
Yeah, I'm the bodyguard of the villain. I have to kick some ass in the movie.
The character of Mr. Han, that Pom is the female officer.
Yeah, I'm a girl.
And what kind of training did you do for the role?
So I had to train 3 hours a day for 2 months, like a Taekwondo-inspired training with J.J. Perry, an amazing stuntman, with David Wall, Jeff Ward, and they were like my older brothers from the movie. And yeah, I was training so hard that I lost a toenail after the end of the movie, so it was great, yeah.
Okay, we've got some more footage to show you. First of all, there's somebody who couldn't be here who wanted to deliver a message to you good folks in New York Comic Con. And then you're going to see a scene which I don't think you can forget in a hurry, but in fact, no one else is going to be seeing it for quite a while. So here we go.
Hello, New York Comic Con. This is Josh from Oldboy. I'm sorry I can't be there. This is a very personal film from Spike Lee and myself. This is my hammer that some interview person gave to me. I've gone completely insane after this movie, so if you'd like to watch the process of me slowly going insane, not only watch the clip and enjoy the clip, but enjoy the movie when it finally comes out. Sorry we can't be there. See you guys.
Usual start?
Yeah.
Start, season start.
You know the drill, put it on the table. 39 across, alter ego of Edmund Dantes.
Count of Monte Cristo.
Time to feed the pets.
Yeah, these motherfuckers don't do shit.
Let me up out of here, motherfucker. Me and you, man to man. Come on, let's go. Shit! You want some get back, then let me get up off this table. Me and you can go at it, motherfucker. What you say? How about it?
Let's do it.
What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing?
Shut the fuck up. There we go. You ready?
Shit, you might want to think about what you're doing here.
I've been thinking about it for the last 20 years.
Wait. God, fucking, ow! Ow, motherfucker! Ow! steak-eating, piss-drinking motherfucker. If you stop now, you may get out of here alive.
Keep going till I can pull your head off in my bare hands.
And that's where they move the cameras. I'm going to be throwing it out to you good folks to ask the panelists some questions in a couple of minutes if you want to get ready for that. But I guess the obvious question I have now is would you describe yourself as just a sick man or a very sick man?
Describe who is a very me.
Having just seen that clip.
What I always say to people is that I found there probably out in the world there's somebody who writes very pleasant children's books and sweet stories full of, sweetness and light. But in his life, he's a despicable, horrible human being. And I'm just the opposite. I balance it out. So I do all the despicable, horrible stuff. The scripts.
And Michael, were you totally unaware of Oldboy before you read the script? And if so, what did you...
I hadn't seen it, but I heard about it.
But then to read the script, that must have been...
Yeah, it was a ride. It was a ride. It was a really fun read and shocking, especially at the end. It just grabs you.
And what about yourself, Bob? Were you familiar with the sort of the fable, with the plot line before you...
Yeah, of course, Park Chan-wook is one of my favorite directors on earth, and Oldboy was one of my favorite movies. And when I saw it when I was 16 in the theater, I wanted to be inside the movie. I'm happy to be here.
And maybe I could ask you what it's like working with Spike Lee. I mean, this is a new experience for you. I don't want to say it's an old experience for you, Michael, but it's something you've done, many times before. What was it like? What was this experience like for you?
Well, Spike is very collaborative, and he wants you to participate and create with him, and bring as much as you can to the role. And he has a rehearsal for all his movies, and a couple of weeks, like before production, which is rare for movies. Most of the time you rehearse in front of the camera. And just really get specific about what we're doing, and if you want to try things, if you want to come up with some ideas, and get underneath them, and it's a luxury. Another good thing was Josh and I didn't know each other. We were playing like best friends, so we had an opportunity to spend some time and hang out in New Orleans together, and just develop a little bond that hopefully we can bring into the role.
What about you, Tom?
Oh my God, I love Spike. I have only amazing things to say about him. If he needed one of my kidneys, I would give it to him. It's for you, Spike. He's a stand-up man. He's amazing, and I'm happy to. Yeah, I'm gonna say I'm happy to be here.
What about you?
Sorry. Great.
Mark, you haven't worked with him before.
No, and when I became involved in this project, it's actually almost been 5 years to the day since I had my first meeting on this movie. And originally, I don't know if some of you know, or at least my involvement in it became involved. Originally, it was Will Smith, Steven Spielberg project that I was contacted to write, and that was the way the movie originated with me. And then it got to a point where they were no longer going to do it. But at that point, I had really fallen in love with the material and really had felt like it was this great opportunity. I mean, I had seen the film before, but you go through this process when I had written a 30-page treatment, and you really start to see the movie in your head. It really started to resonate with me, and it meant a lot to me to see this through. And so the producers and I then sat down and said, they wanted to make it, they wanted to continue going with a different version, and I wanted to be the person who wrote that. And so we worked together for almost a year, probably, of doing various drafts to the point where we had a script that we all felt really good about. I mean, I trying to find a director and an actor, and ultimately Josh and Spike came on board, and I came to New York, and Spike and I had breakfast, and then we sat in his office at NYU and we watched the original film together and discussed that and then talked about the script. And, you know, to his credit, and I will respect him and thank him for this till the day I die, he liked my script, and being a writer himself, it wasn't like he all of a sudden he respects writers, and so, you know, he very much wanted to do this script. Of course there were, you know, of course changes were made, but it wasn't the, you know, not so, the script that he read and the movie that we see is actually very, very close. So that's actually a very satisfying experience for a screenwriter. And I think because Spike respects the writing process, that, you know, he didn't get in the way. In terms of the writing, you know, he had his job to do, and my job at that point when he comes on is to help him as much as I possibly can.
And how much did you go back and look at the original graphic novel?
I had never looked at the manga. I knew the original film had been based on it, but I had never read it. But when I first became involved on the project, I got them all and sat and read them. And it's very different. I don't know how many people here have actually read that whole series. A few. I mean, it's very different from the film. I mean, it's very unusual. It takes some unusual twists and turns, and the ending is very different. But there were some elements that I liked in it. I mean, and one of them being sort of what became the Chucky character and the main character's relationship with his friend who owns a bar, that type of thing.
Okay, questions from the audience? Cheers, right? Yes, let's start over here.
How you guys doing? My name is Joe. Big fan of Oldboy, the original. Big fan of Korean cinema in general. And I have two things to say. I just wanted to know, what are your, three of you, give me a favorite moment while doing the film? Something that happened, favorite moment, the entire process.
Watching her do martial arts. It's pretty fantastic. Really, she's really good. I mean, you just learned to do it. You don't have a martial arts background. Yeah, it looked pretty impressive. Because I was in the room in one scene when she's doing her stuff. And it was really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't remember one particular moment.
Something that you took away.
I'm sorry?
Or I was going to say, or something you took away from the entire experience.
Something I took away? I'm doing taekwondo now. And I'm purple belt. I know it's not really good, but I started in January and I'm going to get better, I guess.
I think one of the things that is different in our script, and one of the things that I most remember from the film was the period of incarceration. We actually spent a little more time there, and we shot for a week straight on this set that was, just a small little room, and Josh going through various makeups and transformations that correspond to different periods. And that whole week was surreal, just shooting in that dark room, dark space in this little room, and just all these little things going on. And you couldn't be in the room, of course, because it was actually a very contained set, so you're watching everything on the monitors. But that whole sequence in the movie was very important to me, and seeing that done was great.
Yes, over here.
Hi, and Oldboy is probably the most psychological thriller I've ever seen. Like, the ending was crazy. I'm not sure but I just want to know, like, the first thought I had when I first saw it was, this could never be made in America. Like, it's just not palatable to the American audience. So I'm not going to ask you to change it too much, but I just want to know if it's going to be along the same vein.
Oh, we're just as psychologically screwed up, believe me. And I think, when the movie was announced, I appreciate, and certainly if I know there are people out there who are skeptical about our version or who were, and I think the expectation was that we were going to whip out or try to make it more palatable to an audience, and everybody involved was very determined to do this as darkly and as intensely, from our point of view, would be that as it was in the original. And I suppose the one thing that I would say is that there was somebody shared with a friend shared with me a comment from the internet where it was, the reaction was typical Hollywood bullshit. They're exploiting an existing piece of art just to make money. And I do take issue with that because I dare you to show me somebody who would watch that original film and afterwards go, we're going to clean up on this. Certainly we hope the movie is successful and people want to come see it, but it is dark, challenging subject matter, and everybody was coming from a place, I think, of creative challenge to try to do the same type of thing here.
Yes, over here.
Hi, I'm Rina. My boy just saw you in the call and I thought this was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
My question is, I guess, sort of along the same lines, what do you find to be the biggest challenge in remaking such a famous movie, and what are some of the things that you did to put your own twist?
The thing, you want to come at it from a place of, at a certain point, you're not thinking about what other people are thinking about us making this movie. You just have to do it. You're coming up at it from for me, it was a very personal, I really put myself into this and really wanted to do it and wanted to try to do it with as much integrity as possible. And it is, I suppose the difficulty is that I know there are people who, feel, and I love the original film. It was one of the most memorable cinematic experiences for me, and I suppose, then you could argue, oh, then why do it? And, for the reasons for me became very, personal, and from a creative challenge standpoint. And if you feel that way about it, that it shouldn't even exist, there's nothing I can say or we can do that is going to change that opinion probably, because that's a very, that's like a very sort of fundamentalist belief. I just hope that perhaps there's a part of people who are open to the experience.
Yes.
Hi. So essentially my question is, as an effects artist myself, I love seeing how films do both digital and practical special effects. I was wondering, how much of this movie is one or the other, and particularly which style do you like to work with better?
I like working with practical. I've done some green screen stuff, and I never really liked it. It's just a little too abstract. Like for me, the more real something is when you're playing it as an actor, the better. To just be doing something in front of a green screen as an actor, not as I don't know. It's just not as fun, not as engaging with the acting process. That's my opinion. And I had some practical special effects stuff done to me, but I don't want to say why. But it was pretty cool.
Yes.
I'm Alan from the Netherlands. Hello.
Hey.
I'm very happy to hear about the reference all of you are having for source material. That would be a little at ease. But I also want to ask, if you remake something and you do exactly the same thing, why bother remaking it? In other words, can you talk a little about the own stamp you are thematically putting on this movie?
Well, it's not a question of coming from a place of saying we're going to improve something or do something, and that's not it at all. What Spike and I often talked about was the idea of cover versions. Like, I love Neil Young's Like a Hurricane. but Roxy Music does a great cover of it. And I'm happy that both those things exist. And because and they're very different from each other. Even though you've got, I think there are certain cover versions that are just slavishly devoted to the original source, to the original song, and therefore it's just sort of a duplication. There are also extreme versions of cover versions where the melody is completely changed. It's almost unrecognizable from the original song. I think what you want to do is create something that honors the original, that you identify the original, but you're bringing something of yourself to it. And so it's not, you know, again, if you have this belief that it should never have been done, I can't convince you otherwise. All I can say is that I think we approach this from a standpoint of, let's take this and use these wonderful elements that affected us, but then try to make it in some ways your own personal story. At least that's what, to bring elements into it that sort of strike stronger thematic chords in me and Spike and the actors, that type of thing. So it's not just, oh, let's just copy this. You are trying to bring something else to it.
Yes.
Hey, in the original, there's sort of this like now infamous one-shot hallway fight scene. It's like my favorite scene in the movie, where Odesu just flies down through with a hammer. And I'm wondering, is that something that you guys wanted to recreate? Because I know that was kind of an infamous part of the original, this one shot. I just sort of want to know how you guys approached that scene in the movie.
I think that's probably a situation where the less we say about that,
Would you try to recreate it now?
I have a question. What is your costume?
Pikachu.
Pokemon from Pokemon.
Oh my god!
Yes, here.
First of all, I just want to say I think it's great that you guys are coming by, giving more exposure to film in general. I know it's a phase time ago, but still, you guys are here. And I was just wondering, I guess along the same lines, were you hesitant to begin work on the project? Did you have reservations of your own?
I had no reservation. No, I mean, I with them. The script was fantastic. The material was great, and the cast that Spike was putting together was great, and Spike Lee himself. I have a lot of, nothing but faith in his work. So, it was a no-brainer for me.
No hesitation was possible. No.
I mean, for me, there's actually, beyond my reaction to it is, I remember even before I became, I think it was one of the producers, Roy Lee, has had the rights to this for a while, and I think there was at one point Justin Lin was going to direct it, and I remember seeing that in the trades, and just as a fan of the original, my reaction was, oh, really? And so I understand that impulse. I get it. But in my circumstances, I was presented with this opportunity to work with a couple of people that were. So that's not a situation I'm going to turn down. But then it evolved into something else where the material then became really important to me. And again, maybe it's really sort of putting blinders on to not thinking so much about the reason behind doing it as opposed to just trying to do the best work you can.
Yes.